Okay, number 3. Now this one actually tricked a lot of you. Either you missed it or you had a lot of questions before you decided on an answer. So we definitely need to talk about this one. Again, even if you got it right or even if you missed it, I'm going to actually tell everybody they need to watch this video. So regardless, you need to listen to the kinds of thinking that can help you on another question that gives you trouble like this. It's not just about that question. It's about getting better at answering questions like these. Okay, so let's look at the question first. In paragraph 3, again, you got to focus on the 3. Really? There we go. The author uses the example. So again, this is I think the third question that talks about an example, or at least second. I know the other one did. They use the example of the 300-year-old house, so it's the house example, to what? What do they use it to do? So if you look, you can look at the choices and it's either proving, demonstrating, emphasizing, and suggesting. And if you look all those up, they're going to be kind of similar in the same family of things. You can prove, demonstrate, emphasize, or suggest with an example. So all of those can be kind of similar. So you're going to have to pay attention to other stuff in the question choices. All right, before we even try to answer it, we're going to reread the passage. You need to be paying attention for the example. And as you get to the example, you need to think, okay, why did they add this? What is their point? Okay, so let's read it. The satellite took the photographs while orbiting Earth, using cameras so powerful that they can locate objects less than a meter in diameter. These cameras can distinguish between the thick mud brick and ancient Egyptians used to build their houses and the less dense soil surrounding them, making the dwellings appear clearly outlined on the desert floor. Okay. So, so far, what have they talked about? They're talking about the satellites taking photographs, and they're using cameras that are really powerful. So they're talking about the cameras being really, really powerful, and they're so powerful that they can locate objects less than a meter in diameter. So that's actually big, but when you're talking about from a satellite, that's not very big because the satellite's way out in space. So that's way out in space is able to find something that's smaller than a meter. Okay, these cameras can distinguish between the thick mud brick that ancient Egyptians used. Okay, so they're distinguishing between thick mud brick to build their houses and less dense soil around them. So they can tell the buildings away from the dirt. They're so powerful and sensitive. Okay, so makes it a little easier to tell where the buildings are. So let's continue. We still haven't hit that example about the house in Tanis. One of Parshak's most exciting moments was the discovery of, there it is, 3,000-year-old house in Tanis. A location made famous by the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, Parshak believes that many more sites are yet to be found. These sites will still need to be physically located and uncovered by archaeologists in order to verify the satellite findings. So this example is all this second half, really. Second half of the paragraph. Now, when they include an example, just like when you wrote compositions, guys, you would explain what your point was, and then after you said what your point was, you would then use an example to make that point clear. So basically, in order to know why they put this example in here, you need to look at what they were talking about before, because that's why they put the example in here. So let's back up again. They were talking about satellites taking pictures with powerful cameras. They were so powerful they could locate objects that were only a meter in diameter. They also talked about how they were so sensitive and strong that they could tell the difference between mud brick, okay, between the mud brick and the buildings. So this whole first half is talking about what? Where'd it go? What is the first half? And you should look at your main idea that you put, because you should have a main idea outside this paragraph in your passage. Okay? What you hopefully wrote was something that it's about using the powerful cameras, or using powerful cameras okay, for their archaeology work, obviously, but we don't have to put for their archaeology work. We know the whole passage is about archaeology. This whole paragraph is talking about these cameras being powerful and how cool they are. Then it goes into the example. Okay, the example doesn't really talk about the camera. It just says it was an exciting moment that he discovered, although it did talk about how they could use the satellite findings. Okay, so let's go back up here to our choices and see if we can tell. Was it to prove that the satellites are constantly taking photographs to locate ancient cities? Okay, constantly means it's going on all the time. They're always constantly taking photographs. So first of all, does it say that they're constantly taking them? Is there anything that says that or hints that it's being done constantly? Really, there's not. For all we know, they take a picture every other day. We don't know. We would assume not, but they probably do more, but it doesn't tell you that. So if their whole point of this first half of the paragraph wasn't about the constantly taking of the pictures, then why would they put this example to say that? And does this example actually say anything about constantly happening? No. So really, this word kind of throws it out. Now, did it take pictures? Yes. Did it locate ancient cities? Yes. The part that makes it wrong is there's no evidence, and this does not have any evidence or provide any evidence to support that it was being done constantly. If you wanted to prove that it were being done constantly, you would show pictures like 20 seconds apart and say, I took all these pictures 20 seconds apart. See? Proved it. But that's not happening. All right, they're demonstrating. Now, demonstrate means to basically show. Usually demonstrate, a lot of times you think of it as acting it out to show it, like I'm going to demonstrate how to answer a question or how to do a math problem. You're actually working it out, but it can be shown in any way. So demonstrate that sites once thought to be fictional, in other words, not true or not real, I should put not real, have been proved to exist. So, excuse me, does this talk about how sites being found that once didn't exist and now they're being found? Does it talk about that in here anywhere? I mean, it doesn't necessarily mention it here. Did it mention it in another paragraph? On question 2, it talked about it, didn't it? The passage, I think that was paragraph 5 that it talked about, where it did talk about things that were not thought to exist. Now, could you maybe infer that since the city just got found that nobody knew it existed before? Probably, you could infer that. However, when you read this paragraph and it talks about all about the cameras and how strong the camera is and how well it does at telling what it's taking pictures of, does it seem like anything about this example is being put there to show how it was fake and or it was not real and then was proven to be real? No, it's not in there at all. Okay. Okay, so even though it might have been fictional before and now it's proven, it doesn't. That's not why they included it, because the whole first half was about using the cameras, and then we give this example out of nowhere to talk about fictional versus real. That's later. Okay, so that one's out. H, emphasize that satellite photography is powerful enough to find a single building. Hey, that sounds familiar. Wasn't that whole first half of this paragraph all about this powerful photography, which means the camera, right? Satellite photography means the satellite camera. Photography is the act of taking the picture. So basically it's talking about the fancy equipment that's powerful enough to find a single building. Okay? Did it tell you that it found a 3,000-year-old house? Yes. So did it find a single building that no one had discovered before? Yes. Had the paragraph been talking about a powerful camera before this? Was there a lot of emphasis on this camera and describing it and explaining how well it was able to capture images? Yeah. So is it possible that that example was included to emphasize really how powerful it was because of this particular house that was discovered? Maybe. Okay, never mark a yes until you check them all. Okay, how about suggest that previously discovered sites may be much older than originally thought? Now, does it mention how old this site is? Yeah. It says it's 3,000 years old. Sounds really old. So this one could be tricky because you're like, sure, it was really old. But let me ask you this. Again, this is asking you why they used it. Did they, just because it mentions it, that it's old? It does not, and it also was it previously discovered? It said, this is one of his most exciting moments was his discovery. So if he discovered it, was it previously discovered? No. So previously means it would have had been discovered already, but no, it was not. It was he discovered it with excuse me, sorry, with all this equipment, okay? So, that rules it out, but also it's not about, this whole paragraph is not about comparing the age and how much older they are. Now, later in the passage, maybe. This paragraph is all about the camera, and these examples are all given to emphasize how well this camera works. So this one should be ruled out. Your correct answer should have been H. Okay, so really think about how you're supposed to think about ruling out choices and choosing what the right choices are. A lot of you are looking for it to exactly say the words, and it won't. It won't necessarily say the words, but you need to be able to say, can I find evidence that really supports it? Don't use your own prior knowledge. Some of you want to go to, oh, well, but it might be because the house was old, that, you know, because it was 3,000 years old, that they probably did think it was older than they originally thought. That there's nothing, no evidence to tell you that. So be very careful of those little thoughts that your brain takes you off on making decisions about something when you're supposed to be using text evidence to answer it. Now, again, on this question, everybody, no matter what, even if you got this answer right, because I'm making everybody watch number 3, I want you to explain to me what you did to get, how did you get it right originally, and then what did you learn from this explanation? So both of those need to be written down here to get credit.